Hello friends, my name is RagePanda1 and today we're going to have a certified hood classic. You get it? Because it's cold down here. Sorry, but we're going to talk about the gear in the game and what you need to do to make it good and if it's worth investing in at all. Spoiler alert, it's kind of a big deal. So obviously the game is going to tell you to equip some gear, it's going to tell you to use the quick equip button, and you are likely going to do that. Now hopefully you're also enhancing your gear, but there are some guidelines to follow that make that as efficient as possible. For one thing, these little octagons that you see here in the section labeled Rune, these are the most important part of your gear. That's it. This is the most important thing about the gear. For that reason, when we are enhancing our gear, we're going to stop every time that we get one of these new runes unlocked. That is the goal of enhancing the gear these days. Didn't used to be the case, but now it is. So if you're investing to get your gear up to level 12, for instance, then all of the weapon XP that you put in from 10 to 12 is essentially wasted. It does give you a little bit of a benefit, but not nearly as much as if you piled it all together to get yourself another rune slot unlocked for your team. And these rune slots are going to unlock at 10, 15, 20, and 25. And you might be looking at rune number 25 there and you're saying to yourself, but Mr. Rage Panda, that does not look the same. And I would say to that, not only are you one of the most attractive people I've ever seen in my life, but you're also wise as an owl, because it is different. That is a different kind of slot. It is a white gem slot, and that means that you can put any color of gem in there. It's really hard to get to that point though. Level 25 equipment is very expensive, but you can put any kind of rune in there that you want to. So let's talk about those runes, shall we? Normally for my weapon, I can only put in red runes. These red runes are going to give me strength, and for that reason it's usually the best one to go after first. So I will try to get everybody on my team to have one slot available for their red rune because it makes the biggest difference in combat. After that, I will try to go for my constitution runes. Those are the green ones that go in your boots. Now after that, it's a little bit up to you, but you do get a pretty significant amount of fortitude from these gems, these runes if you will, and it can make a difference when you're taking basic attacks. It's not going to make any difference against skill damage. That's just not how fortitude works, but they are pretty good for that, and they do increase the overall might of your team. So if you're trying to avoid raising your might level, then you should actually go for the chest piece, which has the yellow rune, which gives you dodge. For some reason, dodge rating doesn't really give your team that much might at all, almost none. But for sure, the first one that you want to do is your weapon, the second one you want to do is your boots, unless you're on some character that doesn't use strength at all, and then you don't need to worry about getting the weapon because the strength isn't helping him that much. You can save it for later. Now, even more astute and keen-eyed viewers might be saying, but there are other colors of gems slash runes. I know they're called runes, but I just want to call them gems. Do you ever get that? I get that. And it's true, there are other colors of runes, and these will only go in the white gem slots. These purple ones give you leadership. That does nothing for combat, but it's fine for districts. So if you happen to have somebody laying around that has the extra gear, sure, you could get a little bit of extra district income from it, but that's a huge investment in leveling up the gear, and I can't imagine you're going to get to that point where it's worth it anytime soon. However, if you wanted to have some prepared and you wanted to switch them in and out, or maybe you're taking the weekend off and you want to put in your purple gems and not look at the game for a couple days, you could do that. It's fine, but mostly you won't be using them. The orange gems, however, they're going to give you some hit rating, which is good, but what's really good is the passionate artistry bonus that you're going to get for having more than one of these in. To get a better look at that, we'll look at this weapon that I have at level 15, where I have two runes in here. You can see it says potent focus 2 of 3. So my champion can get 3.3% bonus strength because I will have 3 gems in there when I get to that point. That bonus applies to all of my champion strength, not just the strength that I'm getting from the runes. So it's kind of a big deal. The issue is that there are 3 of these slots for the red one specifically, and then there are white slots. If I want to get up to 5 to make it a 5% strength bonus, then I actually have to use the white slots of 2 pieces of gear to put red gems in. One of them could be on this same weapon, one of them might be on my chest piece, or whatever it's gonna be. Now personally, I think that having 4 runes with strength and 3 runes that are the orange runes that equal up to giving you a 10% damage bonus, I think that's probably generally the best way to go. Certainly having 3 of those orange gems and getting the 10% bonus is gonna be much stronger than the 1.7% extra strength that we're getting here, although it is GOAT games, so this might just be 5 5% extra strength, it still would be much less than 10% damage overall. Keep in mind that they balance the traits around being roughly equal, and the strength trait is 45%, while the total damage trait is 25%. So if those are roughly equal and we're talking about a 1.7% gain of strength compared to a 10% total damage increase, that means that the orange gems are a huge amount better when you have 3 of them, but you have to have 3 of them before it's better. At the end of the day, each of these is going to have 3 of their respective rune colors in there. My weapon will have 4 red runes, and then each of these other pieces will have 1 orange rune in them so that I can get that extra bonus. That's a long way off for my account, but if that's where you're at, I think that's generally the best play, unless of course you don't need strength at all, and then you wouldn't worry about that. You wouldn't have the 4th red gem, you might put 1 for constitution instead. As with everything else in the game, when you're upgrading your runes, it is significantly more expensive as you go along, and what that means is having more gems equipped for your team that are lower level is going to be better and a more efficient use of your resources than to have 1 rune that's absolutely massive. They do scale pretty strong. I'm not gonna lie to you, they scale pretty strong, but spreading it out and getting the most that you can for each person is going to be better in the long run. The same way that spreading out your gold and your books are often the best way to do it, unless you're going for a cheesy strat of having one guy who sneakily blows up the enemy team, which some people like to do. 2 important things to know. You can upgrade the runes after they are equipped into a piece of gear. That's awesome. Also, a rune is not stuck in a piece of gear once you put it in there. If you upgrade into a mythic piece of gear and you consume the epic piece of gear that you had before, you will get the rune back. You can take them out if you want to. It's not a big deal. So don't be afraid of using your runes. You really can't mess it up. Just know that it's better to have them roughly equal level. Now, there's also a special secret on this screen that applies to the gear, and that's the little class icon that we're seeing in the corner of this piece of gear. It actually tells us what we do right here. It says when equipped, the mage champion will get 30% increased stat bonus. That is not a stat bonus across the board for everything that you have. It's a stat bonus from this piece of gear. It's not overly clear if that applies to the runes, although I assume that it does. Because of that, you want to pay attention to what you're equipping to who. When it's a mage, it's not going to matter. Obviously, if you have the class gear and you have one mage that is your carry, a male Water and Sun perhaps, or a male Akuna, you're going to make sure that they have all of the class gear instead of putting it on one of your other mages that's not as important. But when it becomes a real concern is that warriors and tanks share the same kind of gear, but they have different class icons for the gear. So you want to make sure that you equip the correct class icon onto the correct class so that you're getting that bonus. For instance, on this particular champion, I have one that has a tank class icon, but he is not a tank, which means he's not going to get that bonus. Sometimes that's going to happen, but if I had another tank on my main team, they would be getting the big weapon. Also, with these stat bonuses, some people might be wondering, well, should I keep my legendary gear or should I move up to mythic if the legendary gear has the class icon? Cue the furnace popping in, couldn't let me finish the video. I was cold anyway, so it's probably for the best. Sorry about the hum. If you have a legendary piece of gear that has a class icon, you still want to use the mythic gear. They're roughly equal, to be fair, but it's better to just take off the band-aid, start leveling up your mythic gear. Don't worry about it. Don't concern yourself too heavily with it. The fact of the matter is that Bloodline wants you to have the best gear in the game. That's why they try to sell it to you, so you can count on it being a little bit better. Now, it's possible that if you had a level 25 piece of legendary class gear, and if the bonus applies also to the runes, then maybe it would be better to do it with legendary gear, but we don't have much reason to assume that that's going to actually be better, and by the time you have gear that's level 25, you certainly should have mythic gear to be replacing it with, so I wouldn't concern myself with it. I would just be using the mythic gear the entire time. It's nothing to worry about. You just need to make sure that you're actually using the system. Some people don't upgrade their gear. They don't put in runes. They don't upgrade their runes. Don't be that person. This is a huge gain, and it's not super expensive. And in fact, you sometimes need to keep a lookout for good deals. Leveling up your gear using these tokens is certainly one of the best ways to go about it, and occasionally they will have deals where you can get like 2,500 of these coins, 15 to 20 bucks. That's one of the deals in Bloodline that's actually totally worth it if you're looking for a huge spike of power and you want to spend a little bit of money on the game. Personally, I don't spend that much money on the game, but if I was going to, that would be one of the deals I would be looking out for. I would not spend $50 to get the 500 tokens, nor would I buy any of these other cheaper ones that they have right now. It's just not as much of a value as the ones that sometimes come around. Now that we're talking about runes and gear, gear, we need to pay attention to the Conquest of Sakkad. We're going to get these different tokens that we can use to summon runes, essentially, is what it's for. And you need to understand that runes are one of the biggest ways to get power, especially early in the game, but even into the late game. In fact, Kitty herself will tell you that the reason that she has much more power than other players is because she has invested more into runes, specifically runes. At the end of the line, everybody's going to have the same value from sprites. Everybody's going to have the same max level characters with the same max level vigor. There doesn't appear to be a cap on runes. You can just keep cranking it, baby, and you may as well be doing it if you can do it, especially when you can do it for free, which means participating in a lot of events like Sails and Sabers and the Summertide event that you might not actually want to do, but they're worth clicking through because you get a bunch of these chests and a bunch of runes and therefore a bunch of power. And the last thing that I'll mention, just in case people don't know it, when you use a piece of gear, let's say I had a legendary piece of gear that I got up to level 5 for some reason, I can then put that in a mythic piece of gear, and the mythic piece of gear will gain all of the XP that the lower level piece had when I use it as fodder for the higher rarity piece of equipment, which means, if you didn't understand that, it means you're not going to lose the experience. You don't need to wait to upgrade your gear. Do it now. Just upgrade your gear. You're not going to lose the experience. The same is true for runes as it is for gear. You just need to level it up. You don't need to worry about messing it up. Just level it up. It's gonna be fine. And then of course I'm gonna warn you about a little trap before I go, which is that it says that I can get mythic gear from these Senate orders, and that tricks people into clicking on the gear sometimes, and I've been guilty of it in the past myself. You get here by having a certain level of might and being a certain distance along in the campaign, and then it increases your chances of being able to get these, but you basically have like a 5% chance to actually get a mythic piece of gear here, and it is not as good as just getting the bread for your districts. I would still get bread basically all of the time, but if you really can't resist this button, then please set yourself a rule. Maybe every time you're gonna click Senate orders, you click 2 of these first, and then you get your 2 purple items like I just did, and then you click all your bread. That way you can get both of your gambles and you're still doing the thing that you definitely should be doing, which is to get the bread. And the very, very last bonus tip that I have for you in this video is that a lot of people say that they're good on gold, man. I don't need to work on my districts. I got enough gold boxes to give me 10 bazillion gojillion coins, and I don't ever need that much. You might, because occasionally you can buy these little golden tokens which level up your gear for actual gold if you're paying attention in the equipment store. They're diamonds right now for me. I would not buy them for that. I would never buy them for that, and you shouldn't either. However, sometimes you can get one of these for 800k, and it'll be very worth it if you're way ahead on gold and your districts are massive. If you're at the point in the game where you already have your level 700 team, you've got everybody in your districts already sorted out, you don't need that much gold. You're just investing it into your second and third teams. You're not caring about it that much. You still need to worry about your districts and care about collecting your gold because you can spend it on that, and when you do, you're going to be able to get huge power gains for the rest of your team because it takes so much to get to level 25 equipment across the board. So hey, I hope you've enjoyed this Certified Hood Classic. I don't know, man. Sometimes I do weird stuff, and today I have done some weird stuff. But if anything that I said here today helped you or made you feel at ease about decisions you've made in the past, then please do like and or subscribe, because I would love to have you as a consistent viewer, my friend. For now, I want to thank you for watching. I have been Rage Panda 1, and I will see you in the next one.